It'd be fair to say that I absolutely love the Canon EOS R6. It's a great camera, but it isn't perfect. And so I thought it'd be fun to just do a little rundown of the 5 things that I absolutely love about this camera, and then the 5 things that I really wish Canon would sort out in a future firmware update. So what can we say about the focus that hasn't already been said? It is superb. When it comes to tracking subjects, it really doesn't miss a beat. The Canon R6, alongside its bigger brother, the R5, and I suppose the R3 now as well, just have absolutely fabulous autofocus. The servo mode is pretty much why I bought this camera. Having that tracking ability, having that eye focus, which is now being bolstered with things like vehicle tracking as well. The autofocus in this line of Canon cameras and this Canon R6, superb. And for me, one of the things that I instantly loved about this camera was the ergonomics of this camera. I just loved the tactile and a feel to it, the 3 dials that make up this camera, having those 3 dials to control my exposure triangle of aperture, shutter speed and ISO, and just being able to do that without pressing any other buttons was just a joy for me, something that I've been wanting Canon to do for a very long time, and I was really happy to finally have a camera in my hand that delivered exactly that. Everything about it just feels like it's in exactly the right place that you would want it to be. Pretty much from the start of when I got this camera, I started to customize it. For photography, this is so customizable. Literally every button on the back and around this camera can be customized to do what you want it to do. In terms of photography, it's really, really good. I wear every button exactly where I want it, and this feels like my camera doing photography the way I want to do it. Now, having been somebody who shot with a mirrorless camera way back in 2009 with a very old Fujifilm camera, I had a very low opinion of electronic viewfinders. I've got to say I was really pleasantly surprised by the EVF in this Canon R6. The amount of detail, the refresh rate, everything feels really, really natural looking through the EVF. It's a joy having that histogram viewable in your EVF, which I use the histogram for all of my exposures, and I just love almost everything about this EVF. Now, somebody who does wedding and event photography, low light performance of any camera is absolutely paramount, and this Canon R6 does not disappoint. By far and away the best camera I have used for low light photography. Even when you ramp up those ISO levels to just unbelievable stuff, 12,800, the amount of detail that this camera still captures is just fantastic. It just means that photos that perhaps otherwise wouldn't have gone past the sift can now make it through. This is superb in low light and for the shadow recovery as well. But not everything about the Canon R6 is clear skies and plain sailing. There are a few things that I would like to see changed. I would hope that in future firmware updates, Canon would perhaps look at some of these things and introduce them every now and again. And this is something I've only really noticed in the last couple of months, which does make me wonder whether this has come as a negative from one of the firmware updates. But the camera has started to turn itself onto auto ISO. So even though I may have my camera set at ISO 400, say we're doing a portrait session using off-camera flash, all of a sudden I will start getting overexposed images, and I find that the camera has turned itself onto auto ISO. I don't know why it does it. I've searched the web, I'm not the only one, and I can't find the answer as to why this is happening. If any of you guys can help me out with it, then please do let me know down in the comments. Now, and this is a very personal thing, could just be the way that I use the camera. One of the things that does annoy me, and I love the EVF as I've already mentioned, one of the things that does annoy me is the sensor for the EVF. It really gets on my nerves, not so much when I'm shooting, but when I'm certainly reviewing an image. I tend to do that using my right hand to go in and zoom into an image, or to use the menu buttons. And what tends to happen as I'm doing that, certainly when I'm reviewing an image, is that I will find that as my right hand goes past the sensor on the EVF, it turns the picture off, meaning that by the time my hands hit it, there's no actual image on there. It's a small thing, but for some reason I can't get past it. I keep doing that. It's a little niggle, but it doesn't half get on my nerves. There's no customizable video modes. It's really annoying, as the other cameras in the range, including this EOS R I'm filming through today, all have customizable video modes, and it really helps speed up the workflow. On the Canon R6, there isn't any customizable video modes, so you have but one, and that means that if you want to change the settings, you have to change everything via the menu, and then when you want to revert back, change it all back again. Now, this isn't something that I can see Canon ever fixing. I think it's the way that they're differentiating their camera models is in the video modes, and it was something I was aware of before I got the camera, so I'm not going to complain about it too much, but that is, for me, one of the dislikes. This camera does not have all-eye. Now, for those of you who don't know, the compression modes for video within Canon are usually either all-eye or IPB. Now, IPB are smaller file sizes, but is actually really unusable if you want to do any kind of editing to your video, and just makes the rendering of video a lot slower than using all-eye, which can be found in the Canon EOS R, the R5, the R3. And I think as Canon introduced Canon Log into the R6 post-launch via firmware updates, that's probably something that they could do via a firmware update, and I'd like to see them do. And just sticking with video, the 120 frames per second that you can do with the Canon R6, which gives you super slow motion footage, fabulous, looks great. It is only available in 1080p, but that's okay for me. That's not my mode. But I do wish that 120 frames per second was available via the quick menu, rather than me having to go into the actual menu to turn on that high frame rate and to change the camera settings to 120 frames per second. It's a small thing, but again, it's a workflow thing, and it's small things like that that can really speed up the workflow. But that's just what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below. What are your fabulous loves about the Canon R6, and what don't you love quite as much? And whilst you're down there, don't forget to give a little bit of a thumbs up. Appreciate it. I've been Dave. This has been Let's Click Photography, and I'll see you guys on the next one pretty soon. Bye.